Hi there, this is Catherine with Enfolded Heart Music. In this video, I'm going to be doing a walkthrough of the lyre song Memories of Home. And as with other videos of this nature, I'm going to be going through the entire piece step by step, each note, walking through it slowly for those who want to learn the song but maybe don't have a lot of musical background or can't read sheet music very well. And so it's helpful for you to have someone walk through the entire song and help it be something a little bit more manageable in regards to building up to it and learning it and different parts to practice and things like that. I have everything in one video. I like to do that just for ease, so you have one video just to go back to over time, but I do break it up into different sections and different parts, and I'll say in different intervals when a good time maybe to pause and to practice something would be. So I'll kind of walk you through that as well, but everything's in one video just for your convenience. If you're interested or if it's helpful to you, I do have sheet music available in a couple of different places. The primary one is on our shop page, which I'll include a link in the description. If you're not aware, we did have to very recently redo from scratch the entire website, and so there may still be a few kinks in there. I apologize for that and apologize to those of you who maybe had some trouble with that. But if you do have any trouble with it still, please let me know, send me an email. Everything should be worked out, but just in case it's not, please let me know and I'll get back to you as quickly as I can. We'll get that worked out for you. The other place besides the shop is if you're interested in supporting on a monthly basis. I do have a Patreon that's available. It has different tiers and things like that, all very low, but it's helpful for me. So if you'd like to help out in that way, that's available. Again, I'll include that Patreon link in the description. Reasons why it might be helpful for you to have the sheet music, two main ones is first, because I am going to be using it as a reference throughout the video. I find it very helpful to be able to say, to communicate with you what measures I'm looking at, what part of the piece I'm in. And so it would definitely be a help for you not to get lost in the piece, so like I said, exactly where we're at, and can follow along in that way. Even if you can't read sheet music very well, you'd be able to get a gist of, okay, the notes are going up or going down, things like that. The second reason is if you do want to be able to read sheet music independently with greater ease, it would be probably a nice way to do that. You'll be able to know, okay, I am playing the right note, and be able to match that up visually when looking at the sheet music and then aligning it with what I'm playing and how the notes sound, etc. So if you're interested, it's available, as well as the song itself. Of course, I put everything up on the YouTube channel. Eventually, it takes some time, but music albums are available on that shop as well. So again, if you're interested, if you'd like to support, if you like the work that I'm trying to do, then it's certainly appreciated. So with that, we will jump into the first part and talk about the structure of the piece and the key. Okay, for our first part, like I said, we're going to talk about the structure of the piece. How is it arranged as an entire piece? What are the sections? And I'll also actually probably first talk about the key that it's in. So the key, if you have no musical background, all you need to know is that the key is referring to what your strings need to be tuned to. If you do have the sheet music, you'll see there's two copies of the sheet music. There's the clean copy where it just has your typical notation, and then there's also a copy where it has the note names and the octaves underneath each note. I know that's helpful for a lot of folks, so I found a way to do that. So on that second copy, I'm going to be using that second copy just because my sense is that it's probably the one that most people, if you're using sheet music, are going to use. So that means that the first measure is on 113. So, but above that, you'll see that I've written out 16-string lyre tuning in C minor. This is the same key signature as E flat major. If that doesn't mean anything to you, that's okay. If it does, great. So it's in a minor key, which you may have picked up just by the sound of it. And underneath, I have written out what your strings should be tuned to. And so on the far left is your lowest string, that's going to be way down here. And then if you just follow each one, that's what your tuner should say as you go up. The only exception, or the only thing maybe to note about this, is that you may have a tuner, rather than it saying, for example, A flat or B flat, it may have the sharp version of that. And what I mean by that is, instead of saying A flat, it may say G sharp. That is the same note. So that's fine, and that's what you're looking for. Same with the B flat, it may say A sharp. Or E flat, it may say D sharp. So if you're kind of confused, know that those are the same thing. If you were to look on a piano, you have the two white keys and you have a black key in between. So it's basically referencing from two different angles, either from above or from below. So just so there's no confusion about that. So just to walk you through real quick that tuning. So you're going to have G3 as your lowest note. Then you'll have A flat 3, B flat 3, C, excuse me, that's C4, D4, E flat 4, F4, G4, A flat 4, B flat 4, C5, D5, E flat 5, F5, G5, and A flat 5. Now, if you're using this to only play this song, the bottom, let me see. Well, I guess it's only bottom two. You won't use the bottom two notes, so you don't have to worry about that. But I thought it was more than that. So that's your tuning. Make sure you've got that all set in tune. If you have any questions about that, I've got some other videos that talk about that. And there's also many other people who are doing a great job at some of those basics. So that's your tuning. We're going to be in C minor, which means we're going to be hanging around the C as our kind of strong point throughout the piece. So that's the first part I want to make sure we've got just set up and ready to go. The second is just to take a look at the piece as a whole. In contrast to some of the other pieces, this piece, it has a lot of repetition and also not a lot of repetition. So what I want to point out are kind of the big stroke repetitions right now, and then within each section, you'll notice that there's a lot of repetition. And I'll point that out as we go. So what I like to do, I like to mark it out, especially before I do these videos, of what are the main sections in here, and it helps just organize the piece, I think, a lot more, rather than just the entire thing being in one kind of glob, sort of like chapters in a book. So let me just point out a couple of things. If you like to mark it, here's your chance to do so. So I'll just call this Part A. Part A we have from the first measure, which on this copy is 113, and that goes all the way to measure 135. Let me make sure this is over all the way. 135. It's going to end, you'll see that C4 at the bottom. That's the last part of, we'll call A. A1 is actually what I'd call it. Then you have what I call A2, which basically just means there's a lot of similarities between A1 and A2. So much so that I didn't want to call it B, but enough to say, well, it's not exactly the same thing. But I'll talk about that more when we get there. So A2 goes from kind of the second half of measure 135 and goes to 164. 135 to 164. After that, we're going to have Part B. You could also call this a bridge because it's quite different than anything else in the piece. It has different rhythms, different notes, though of course similar, but it's got a different feel to it. That starts on measure 165 and is going to run all the way until I'm sorry, let me look at that. 179, 165 to 179. Okay. And then we're going to have our only full repetition of a section, and that is A1 is going to repeat itself exactly, and that starts right after the bridge at the end of, or the second half of measure 180, and go all the way until 200, the first part of 200. 180 to 200. And then the final page, again, if you're looking at the sheet music, it's this final back page, plus 2 notes on the other side. This is all just what I called the end. There's a lot of repetition in it, and a lot of repetition from previous parts, kind of like little snippets that are repeated. Kind of like it has this piece has a sense of something fading away. So it's like you hear just like little bits, and then it kind of gets smaller and smaller and smaller. So I divided that up into end 1 and end 2. End 1 is going to go from measure 200 to 216. And there's even 2 parts within that. It's almost exactly the same. And then you have the actual end of the piece, which is end 2, is what I called it. I can call it whatever is most fitting for you. And that runs from 216 until the end of the piece. 216 to the end. So I give this to you, first of all, because it's the way I'm going to structure this video and the different parts for it. Also, just to give you a sense of kind of, where are we returning to certain themes, and also just how to approach it. I think people are probably at different levels who are watching this video, and so it may be helpful for you to just simply know, okay, here's how I can break this up for my practice, and these are the parts I can focus on, and this is a good place to stop, and really work these last 15 measures or 10 measures or something like that. So I find that helpful just to get a whole sense of it. And anyways, okay, so once you've got everything tuned and you've got that written down, if you so desire, we will go ahead and jump into the left hand exclusively, because it's extraordinarily repetitive, kind of like Whispers of Beauty, actually very similar to Whispers of Beauty. So we're going to do that next, and then we'll start with the right hand and put everything together. I'll call that part 3. Okay, we are back with our next part, and in this part we're going to focus on just the left hand, because once you have the left hand, it's the same throughout the entire piece. If you have worked on Whispers of Beauty, or if you want to after this, know that the kind of technical skill is going to be exactly the same. It's a nice rhythmic feel for the piece, and it's something I like to use and have used in a couple of pieces, and these two are 2 of them. So let's go ahead and just look at the first 3 measures. You'll see, if you take a look at that they are exactly the same. And so let's go ahead and find those notes. We're going to look for C4. And if you've got a 16-string lyre, they have different tunings, but if you have them structured in this way, where you have the low note at the bottom, high note at the top, your low note is going to be G, so we can just go up from there. We have G and then A, B, C. Now I'd stick your thumb on C, and let's take a look at what notes we need to cover in this measure. We say we have C4, D4, E flat 4, and then we skip 1 and go to G4. Okay, so again, I would use your thumb, your pointer finger, middle finger, and then your ring finger. I never use my pinky. It's just too short. It's awkward and in the way. I know that harpists also don't use their pinky, so maybe that's part of it too. So once you've got your hand situated on there, I would go ahead and just play real slowly these 4 notes: C4, D4, E flat 4, G4, and get comfortable with that. Once you're comfortable going up, try going back down as well. That's a movement you want to get really comfortable with if you'd like to play this piece with kind of smoothness. A couple of things to kind of note and look at your own hand. This left hand can get real tight. There can be a lot of tension. So a few things to help avoid that. First of all, you don't have to keep your hands on the instrument the entire time. Actually, that would be quite difficult if you were to go. Right? So if you noticed a second ago, I was pulling off a lot. And that fourth one, I really just kind of jump up there only when I need it. I don't hang out up here because it makes it really hard to move these fingers. My training is in piano, and so that's part of it as well. So if you have something else that's more comfortable for you, that's totally fine. This is really just what has worked for me. Things I would really stay away from is anything that causes tension or tightness, or anything that's unnatural. What I mean by that is, for example, you don't want, say this is my left hand, you don't want your wrist like this. Use a lot of tension there. You're only using your hand. You want things straight and relaxed. You want to be in a good chair, have a good posture, and a good posture, things like that. And I wouldn't rest your left hand. I know this is my right hand, but pretending it's your left hand, I wouldn't rest it, on the back of the lyre too much. It's going to some. But you don't want to end up doing something like this, where all you're doing is moving your fingers and you're not taking advantage of all the muscles that are attached up in here. That's going to lead to a lot of tension, and you're not going to be able to move very quickly in those fingers like you need to for this song. So just a couple of pointers for that. So let's practice that again. That's C4, D4, E flat 4, G4, and then back down to E4, D4, C4. Okay. Once you have that, go ahead and bump it down one string. So you have your fingers here, bump down one string. And you will see, if you look at, let me see, the first time this happens is in measure 121. You'll see it's the exact same finger pattern. It's this exact same movement. You're just doing it on different strings. And so you're actually technically kind of in a different key. So as you just saw, I'm sorry I didn't speak it through very well. Once you get comfortable with the one starting on C, get comfortable with the one starting on B flat, which basically shouldn't take you much time because it's the exact same thing. Your hand's going to be in a slightly different position because it's one lower. But what you really want to focus on is switching back and forth between the two. So I would try and do 2 on the C one, 2 on the B flat one, 2 on the C, 2 on the B flat. And also just enjoy the beauty of the sound. It's really easy to get too technical and just trying to do the thing right and forget to actually listen to the instrument. So I would do that and just go back and forth until it just becomes really easy and quite pleasant to listen to. Okay. I am not pulling really hard on the strings. It's quite soft and quite quiet. It's just the way I like to play. It's also real quick, and it's not going to overpower that right hand. Just a few notes about that. Once you get comfortable with that, you will, if you look through the entire piece, you will see that that is the entirety of the left hand. The only thing particularly tricky about it, I would say, is when you're going from that B flat one. So once you have that, once you've gone back and forth between these two, you will notice that that is the left hand throughout the entirety of the piece. There's going to be a few moments, for example, it's when you're going from the B flat to the C. So an example of this is in measures 24 and 25. If you take a look at that left hand, you'll notice that the last note of measure 124 is a C4, and it's also the first note of measure 125. And what this means is the transition is a little bit tough, and I'll just illustrate what that would look like. So you're on your B, I'm sorry, and what you've been used to is just ending on the B again, right? B, C, D, F, D, C, B. But because you are transitioning up, you actually don't end on that B, you end on the C of measure 125. So let me talk this through real slowly. We have B flat, C, D, F, D, C, and then you're going to play C again to start the C transition, or the C version. So let me show you how this looks slowly. So what you'll notice is I use my pointer finger here on that C4 in measure 124, but then I transition to my thumb in measure 125 to start that new one. If I don't do that, if I don't do that, I'm going to run out of fingers. So since I've explained that, let me show you one more time. B flat, C, D, F, D, C, transition C, D, E flat, G, E flat, D, C. Okay. So again, get real comfortable with that, and once you have that, you first of all learn the first 3 measures of the song, which is kind of nice, and you will be ready to add that right hand in, and you won't even have to think about the left hand. So practice that, and then come back when you're ready to start the beginning of the piece. Okay, we're back for the next part where we're going to start working with the right hand. And as I've said before, I like to put and recommend putting the right and left hand together sooner rather than later, because it helps you to learn them together rather than learning them separately and then having to kind of relearn them together again. But we will start with the right hand because you got to start with one at least for a moment, and then we'll add in the left hand. But the section I'm going to be focusing on is what I call A1, and this will start, technically the right hand doesn't come in until measure 116, and then it goes, this section goes until measure 136, just the very beginning of 136. Okay, so let's leave out the left hand for the time being and just go through a couple of measures of this right hand and just kind of get comfortable with it. So you'll notice throughout that we're going to land on a C and a G a lot, and that's because, again, we're in C minor. And so we're looking at measure 116. And we see our first note is G4, which, if you have a similar lyre to myself, it's the last kind of copper string. I'd use your thumb for this, your pointer finger for the B flat. So we have G, we're going to skip over the A, we have B flat, and then C. G4, G4, B flat 4, and C5. Should be quite a comfortable position, just because it works naturally with the way the hand is. And parts of this piece is quite nice. They're rather slow in the right hand because you got a lot of movement in the left hand, kind of drumming in the left hand, and so it's not too bad. So we have G4, B flat 4, C5, and we just let that ring. So if you want to go ahead and throw in the left hand, it actually might be kind of fun to do that. Let's go ahead and do that, because then we'll have sort of 5.5 measures done, and that's, I don't know, that feels kind of nice. So we'll start with that left hand, and we see the first 3 measures are just a repetition of that drumming just on that C part. Okay, then we let that ring, that C ring, and let the right hand kind of sing a little bit into it. So I'll go ahead and play just those first, the first 6 measures up until 118. I'll try and do it quite a bit slower so that you can listen and then play along with me if you'd like. So from the beginning to 118. Okay, I'll do that again for you. So you will notice that the left hand comes back in when that right hand hits the C. It's almost like the G and the B flat are kind of a running start to get that left hand going. Okay? So that's the first few measures. Probably the trickiest part about this song is just the speed of it is a little bit faster in that left hand. That might be probably the biggest challenge. There's a few other tricky parts, but it's actually quite simple and quite slow in the right hand, which might be a nice surprise for you. Okay, so we've already done 116, 117, 118, and the first half of 119 with 3 notes of the right hand, which is great. We'll go ahead and do that next little section, which is similar in rhythm. And I'm going to work from 119 just in the right hand to 122. So let's look at the notes and then I'll play it in the proper rhythm and you can practice from there. So we have C5, which is what we ended on. Remember we did G, B flat, and C. We used our middle finger for that, but you want to transition to your thumb in measure 119. If you don't, you're going to run out of fingers. So we have C, D, E flat, then G, and F. I'm seeing as I'm going through this, there's an error on the sheet music. I need to mark that. That is just not correct. So you should have E flat, and then it jumps up. It says that there's a G5. Oh, I know what happened. Okay. Basically, you see E flat 5 in measure 120. E flat 5 and G5, and then F5. And what happened was I marked it one note too early. So E flat 5 repeats itself in a tie, which means you don't actually play the note again. It's just a rhythmic notation. The third note in measure 119 should be G5. And then the first note and only note in 121 should be F5. So you kind of just bump those over. I apologize for that. If you get this sheet music after I've made the video, that will be corrected. So if you don't see that, don't worry about it. Okay. So again, we have C5, D5, E flat 5. Then we skip a note to G5 and back down to F. So let me play that in the proper rhythm. This comes in on the do I have it in 3/4? Yeah, this comes in the third beat of the measure. So I'll count off 1, 2, and then take off from there. So 1, 2. Again, just so you can hear it. 1, 2. Last time. 1, 2. One reason why adding in the left hand early will be helpful is because there's a couple of rhythmic, what we call the offbeat. So instead of coming down on 1, 2, or 3, it comes in on when my hand is up. 1 and 2 and 3 and so that gives it a nice rhythm, but it can be kind of tricky for the player. So the left hand has the 1 and 2 and 3 and throughout the entire piece, so you'll be able to feel it a little bit more strongly and time that right hand correctly. So let me illustrate that with the left hand. It will make a little bit more sense. So I'm just, again, I'm going to start at the beginning of 119 and just play those 3 measures, 119, 120, and 121. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and illustrate that. I need a little bit of a running start, I think, for the left hand. But you will see that the left hand drops down to B flat when I go to this F5. This is in measure 121. So this is the first time the left hand switches down. So let me illustrate that and help you kind of follow what I'm saying. One more time. So I'll go ahead and put those two sections that we've done together. So we're going to play actually from the beginning of the piece until 122. And again, take your time. I would do the right hand rhythmically, find the notes and then do them rhythmically a number of times so that you can just be real comfortable with that, and then go real slow when you're putting them together, and always just be patient with yourself. It's going to take time, and then as you grow, this coordination between your right and left hand is going to be much easier and much more natural. Like I've mentioned before, my background is in piano, and so putting the two hands together and doing very different things rhythmically is a skill that I developed through that, and so the transition was much easier for me than it certainly would have been if this was my first instrument. So if this is your first instrument or your first instrument with two hands, just be real patient, and my biggest recommendation would be to get that left hand basically on autopilot so that you can focus on the right hand and coordinating them together, and then just go real slow. So we're going to start at the very beginning of the piece. You will notice that you cannot have your right hand already on those first notes while your left hand is coming, because, good, you can see it in the video, it's the same note. So if I were to hold my hand here as if I'm ready to play, it's not going to sound because it can't vibrate. So you need to at least have your left hand, I don't know why I said that, your thumb off, so that this G can ring, because they need to share a string. Usually I actually just like to leave the right hand out totally, but that's totally just a personal preference. Okay, so 113, that's the beginning of the piece, and we will stop at the end of 122. I'll do this probably twice. I'll try and go quite slow. One, two. Again. One, two, three, and 1. Okay. In that transition with the left hand from measures 120 to 121, make sure that you're dropping that thumb down. So you'll have C, and then instead of going to the C, which is what you've been doing before, you got to drop that thumb to the B flat. Okay. So again, get used to that, get comfortable with that, and once you're ready to move forward, you don't need to rush. It doesn't need to be perfect, but you also don't need to be rushed. It's I guess a happy medium in between those two. But once you feel like you're ready for some new content, then we will go ahead and keep going. We're still in part A1, and we will go ahead and start doing that. We'll be on 123, measure 123. We've ended with our pointer finger on 122. I'm sorry, on F in measure 122 on F. Okay, And your hand's going to come off because it just rings, and you have some rest there. But you're going to come back on with on a G, which is going to be one note higher than the F, again with your pointer finger. And let's just go through those notes. We're going to look at from measure 123 until 126, where that long note, that long G is. So we have G, A flat, G, F, E flat, F, G, G again, and G one more time. So you see that we stay just right in this area. It kind of is nice ringing high notes up there. So rhythmically, this is what this will sound like. Again, let me count the 1, 2, because this is 3 and. Those first notes are 3 and, the last beat of the measure. So 1, 2, 3 and. Again. 1, 2. One more time, just for good measure. 1, 2. Just as a little bit of an aside, if you see a measure that has just quarter notes in it, 3 quarter notes, that is going to probably feel like triplets. So again, that's for anyone who has a little bit more musical background. It's going to feel like a like a triplet, even though it's not marked that way. That's the kind of rhythmic feel of it. So let's go ahead. Let me put the left hand in there. It will help with the rhythm because there's so many offbeats in this piece. So we have the B flat. There we go. There's a B flat. That's our C, B flat. Okay, just orienting myself. Okay, so I'm gonna start here. I'll start. We'll start right on 123. Okay, 123 again to 126. Here we go. You will notice that there was again a switch in that left hand. It needed to switch when we landed on F, and then it kind of rested a bit more on that G. That's in measure 125. So you start with the B flat rhythm, and then take that rhythm up to C after 2 measures. So I'll play that a few more times with both hands. Again. Last time. Okay. If you are having trouble with the rhythm of the right hand, my recommendation, again, get that left hand on autopilot. And if you don't know how to read sheet music, if you don't know how to read the rhythms, you could study that. That would certainly be a help to you. But 2 other things that would be helpful is for you to listen to the song independently of this video, and try and clap or tap the rhythm out with it so that your body feels when it's supposed to come in. So that's to help separate you thinking about what notes you need to play and what rhythms you need to play those notes on. So typically what we've been doing is just finding the notes and then adding the rhythm on top, but because the rhythm is a little bit trickier in this piece, or it might be for some people, if you want to separate those further, the rhythm from the notes, and just focus on the rhythm, I would, you just take I was going to grab my pencil. You just take a pencil and tap it out, or, just tap it on your lyre or clap your hands, whatever. But try and follow it so that you get it in your ear and you get it in your body so that it just I don't know how else to say it besides it feels right. You just like when you listen to music, you can feel the beat. Same kind of thing. So you want to get it in your ear if you cannot read sheet music. And once you've got that, then try and just do that right hand by itself, and then add in that left hand just on autopilot. So hopefully that helps a little bit. Let me know if you're still having trouble with it. I'd be happy to help if I can do anything in addition to that. But those are just a few thoughts to help you with this particular piece, because that's what makes it. There's not a lot of different notes in it in a certain sense, and so the rhythm is what gives it a lot of interest. Okay, so let's move forward from there. We have finished on measure 126. We're going to pick up on 127 just with the right hand and just do all the way until that F5. Just two measures later, that's measure 129. So just a few measures here. We ended on G, G5. We're going to pick up on G5 again. We have G5, F5, E flat 5, D5, E flat 5, F5. Okay, let's see if I can do this in the rhythm. Oh, excuse me, that was the wrong notes. I dropped too low. So the way I do this fingering wise is use your middle finger for that G, your pointer finger for the F, and your thumb for the E flat. Okay, and then I pick up my whole hand. You don't have to do it this way. This is just the way I find most simple and easy. And I shift it down one string. Now earlier I shifted it down 2. That's why it was incorrect. But you just do that first part starting with the G, and then you'll switch just down 1 string for the D. So I'll do that in more the proper rhythm. 1, 2, 1, 2. Let's do that again. 1, 2, 1, 2. Oh, I did the same thing again. Okay, let's try that again. 1, 2, 1, 2. Last time. 1, 2, 1, 2. With the left hand, we've got that on C, and then we'll drop down to the B flat like we've done before on the very last note, that F5. So we've ended with the G in measure 26. I'm basically doing the last line on the page, 126 through 130. Okay, let me do that a couple more times. Last time. All right. Now I go ahead. If you want to, you are most welcome and even encouraged to go ahead and do that entire page. But just for the sake of this tutorial, I'm going to go ahead and add the last bit on of the right hand, which is in measures 131 through 134, and then we'll do all of A1 together. So here we go. In measure 131, we've got an F. We ended on an F. We're going to start on an F, and I would start with your your middle finger, F, E flat, D, B flat. And then don't use your thumb for the D and then C. That's a lot of thumb work. You're almost bound to miss a string. So what I would do instead is you have F, E, D, thumb for B, and then I would use your middle finger for that D, and then your pointer finger for the C. Okay, I'm going to shift a little bit for the camera. Okay, so we'll play that rhythmically without the left hand. 1, 2. Again. 1, 2. Last time. 1, 2. Okay. And we'll go ahead and add that left hand in and then try and put everything together. So again, you'll see there's a shift that happens. This is a common theme in the left hand where it starts either on the B flat or the C, and then in the last note, that long note, it shifts up or shifts down to whatever one it's not on. So if it's at B flat, then the last note shifts up to the C, or if it's on the C, then it shifts down to the B flat. This adds a bit of just interest to the piece, and it keeps the listener interested and kind of pushing forward in the piece. So this part starts with the B flat, and then we're going to shift up to C with the right hand when the right hand plays that C5. So with the left hand, here we go. So what I am playing is measures 131 all the way through the end of section A1, which ends on that C4 in measure 135. So we'll do that 2 more times. Last time. Okay, again, go ahead and work that section of the piece, and once you're done with that, let's go ahead and put the entire thing together. Hopefully you've been doing that throughout. Again, this is something where I would put kind of a stop point for you here, where if you haven't gotten it down, certainly not perfectly, prior to this part, this is a time when I would stop and really work this entire section as one section, as one piece, meaning from the beginning of the piece all the way through 135. I'd get that kind of real scrub it down. Get, if you're cleaning a window, clean those last kind of little smudges off of there before moving forward at all. So I'm gonna go ahead and play that whole section A1 just to illustrate, and so you can play with me if that's helpful for you. But again, this is definitely a stop point more than the kind of small, yield signs, maybe you could say, that we've had before this. That was just so you could learn the notes, get the rhythms a little bit, but now you want to have a kind of proficiency with this A1 section. Otherwise, you're going to be trying to digest too much at once, and so that's why I kind of have a hard stop here, and just kind of a little bit of assessment of yourself. So let's go ahead with that. If you're ready to go ahead and do this entire A1 section, we will go ahead and do that together. Again, go slowly or as slow as you need to. I'm going to try and go slowly. It's surprisingly hard for me to go slower, only because of muscle memory. So I apologize if I speed up or if I'm going a little bit too fast for you. Please don't be discouraged by that. Just know that it's not on purpose, and I would encourage you to go slower rather than faster for sure. So let's go ahead and do this first section and work our way through. Here we go. once you've learned that, that's a big chunk of the piece, and it's actually the only section that repeats itself, which is very nice. Again, get that solid and then come back and we will start on measure 136, which is A2, and there's actually quite a bit of repetition in what we just learned, so hopefully that is an encouragement to you. Okay, we are back now in looking at the right hand and then the hands together, but the right hand for section A2. I guess you could call this B, but they're so similar in many ways, particularly the second half, that it was worth repeating the A. So this section, what we're looking at is from measures 136 to 164. We're going to pick up right where we left off in the last part, and we'll do the same thing. We'll just go with the right hand real slow, add the left hand in, and I'd work it the same way that you did in this first section. So let's take a look. You'll notice that right off the bat we already have some very familiar notes, actually the exact same ones. So the first three notes of this section are the same first three notes of the last, so we're just going to pass right through that. We've got G, B flat, C, same exact thing, same rhythm. You'll notice that just as with the intro, that left hand is left ringing. We've had, and then we ring for 2, and then the right hand gets to have that running start. Okay, the rhythms in this section are going to be real similar to the rhythms in the previous section, which hopefully is of help to you and encouragement to you. They're just a little bit different notes. So let's go ahead and take a look at those different notes. We've got in measure 139 is where I'm going to start and really kind of slow it down. We're starting on C again. We just ended on C. We're going to start again on C. And in the last section, we just went straight up. We went, okay, we went up, something like that, but we went straight up. And instead of going up, we're going to go down. So again, we ended on that C. We went from G leading up to the C. And in starting again on measure 139, we have a C5, D5, C5, B flat 4, and then a G4. Now there's something a tiny bit tricky about the cooperation between the left hand and right hand. If you look in measure 139, you will see that the left hand has just played that G4 right before the right hand needs to. So all that really means is that you got to get your left hand out of the way. Otherwise it's not going to ring. I'll show you that a little bit more slowly and put them together when we're at that point, but just so you're aware, if you feel like they're getting in each other's space, they are a little bit. But you'll see in the next measure, in measure 141, that left hand drops down and the G4 is not an issue anymore. You have the F, which is very similar coordination and move as the measure prior to that, but it's a little bit different there. So just so you know, there's a little bit of sharing of that G4 again, just like we had at the beginning of the piece. So we had again C5, D, C, B flat 4, G, G, and we'll go and finish that off. G, G, and then F4, G4. So let me play that rhythmically for you to listen to. 1, 2. 1, 2. Again. 1, 2. 1, 2. Last time. 1, 2. 1, 2. Okay. With the left hand, I'm going to go ahead and put in this first few measures that we kind of went real quickly over because they were repeated. We're going to start at the beginning of this section in measure 136, and go all the way through 143. So we're starting on our C again, okay, just like at the beginning of the piece. So again, I've got to move this hand out of the way so that G4 can be shared. I'm actually going to start, I apologize, I'm going to start at 134 because that'll give me a little bit of a leeway coming into how this right hand comes in at the beginning of this section. So 134 through 143. One, two. Again. 1, 2. Okay, that's the first part of A2. We'll keep going and start at measure 144, looking at that right hand. We again ended on G4. We're going to start with G4, and you probably used your pointer finger to end on that. You want to start with your thumb because, as you can see with the notes coming up, it's going to climb upwards. So we have G4, and that's a bit of a skip. We're going to skip 2 strings and have C5, D5, D5, E flat 5. What I would do and recommend that you do, you see how that D5 repeats itself. On the first one, you're going to use your middle finger, but on the second one, I would use your pointer finger so that you can reach that E flat 5 with your third finger. It's just a bit more comfortable. So I'll do that rhythmically. Oh, excuse me. Again. 1, 2. Last time. Sorry, last time. 1, 2. Okay. Add that left hand in. You have the B flat at first, and then it switches to the C1 when you hit D for the second time. Again. Last time. Okay. So let's put that all together. We're just doing a few measures at a time so you know what the notes are, and then kind of just try and hook that on like those little toy trains. Try and hook that on to the rest of the train sooner rather than later. So again, starting at the beginning of the section in measure 136, we're going to go all the way through 147. Again. 1, 2. Awesome. The next section is pretty simple. Again, this is going to feel like triplets. Again, if you see those 3/4 notes in a single measure, it's going to feel like triplets because you're playing on the offbeat a lot. That maybe didn't make sense, but that's okay. It's going to feel like triplets. So this next section we'll just add these 3 measures, which is only 4 notes. We're gonna we ended on B flat 5. We're gonna start there again and start with your pointer finger. So we have our E, and then that should say a G5. Let me. G5. E flat 5, G 5, E flat 5, F 5. So rhythmically, again, last time. And you could use all sorts of different fingerings on this. I'm using just my pointer and middle finger. You could also use, which I may actually naturally do, your thumb as well for the E, your middle finger for the G, again your thumb for the E flat, and then your pointer finger for the F. Okay, so with the left hand, again we have that first measure with C, which is where we've been, and then it drops down to B flat with the F. Again. It may be easier for you to get that rhythm in your left hand going first, because that's what you will have when you're playing the entire piece, to get that first instead of just jumping right in there. So I'll do that here too. Last time. Okay. So let's go ahead and do everything together in this section, and then I'm gonna, it'll be nice because the rest of this part A, A2 is the exact same as part A1, and you'll see that as we go. So let's do the first part, which is from measure 136 through 150. 136 through 150. Here we go. One, two. One more time. 1, 2. Okay, so we stopped at measure 150, and then if you look ahead a little bit, we're looking at 151, and if you look from 151 until the end of this section, which ends in 164, you'll notice that it's the exact same as we had before, in measures at 123 until 135.5. So you've essentially learned all of part A1 and A2, but let's go ahead and put all of A2 together. I'm not going to repeat that because we've already walked through it very slowly. But let's go ahead and play that whole part A2 section, and then we will put everything that we've learned all the way from the beginning of the piece until this part all the way together. So again, beginning in the second half of measure 136. 1, 2. Just to repeat right here. Okay. So once you're comfortable putting that together, I would put that together before you add it to the beginning of the piece. Again, this is where I'd have a hard stop sign, and I would take this section and work it real well. Make sure you're very comfortable with it. And part of what I mean by that is giving your body time and your fingers and your mind time to digest what you are learning. It's very hard to learn new stuff super quickly when you're at a beginning stage of things, because there's a lot that's working and a lot that has to come together. So give yourself time for that. It will take, will take at least several days for it to come together, and just know that that's part of the process. So I'm going to go ahead and put everything that we've learned together again from the very beginning of the piece all the way until the end of section A2, which ends at 164. Yeah, we'll give it a shot, and again, follow along in whatever way is best for you if this is where you're at in the piece. Repeat right here. Okay, you've learned probably about half the piece at this point. So once you're there, once that's good to go, you're ready to jump to the bridge of the piece. We'll do that next. Okay, we're back now and ready for the bridge of the piece. You could also just call this simply part B. I call it a bridge just because it's particularly different than the rest of the piece rhythmically and especially. And it just kind of serves that purpose. It within the structure of the piece, it gives the ear a little bit of a rest, and attracts the attention of the listener to something different, such that when you return to what you've just learned, there is a beautiful freshness to it and also familiarity. That's one of the reasons I think a lot of pieces have repetition, is because there is that balance between a familiarity of someone who could sing along with it because they've already heard it, but also it's not so repetitive that you haven't heard anything else but that. So anyways, okay, so the bridge serves, that sort of purpose. And the section that we're going to be looking at, again, is from measures 165 all the way until 180. The left hand continues to be the same, and the right hand has a lot of these triplet feels to it. You can even, just by glancing over the sheet music, notice, particularly on page 6, that there's a number of measures that do that. And actually, you'll see, it's kind of funny to look at, you'll see the bottom 3 lines on page 6. On the left-hand side, you'll see, oh my goodness, those are the exact same measures. So the trickiest part, I think, of this piece, besides the speed, is the rhythm, because there's a lot of repetition in the right hand and what it's doing, and it's not playing that fast in the right hand. The left hand is, but the right hand's not. But in regards to putting those notes right where they need to be, to have that emphasis and to draw your listener out and kind of pique their interest, that's kind of the challenge of this piece. So let's go ahead and jump in. We're looking at measure 165. We're going to start on C. We've ended on C, but we're going to start back on C. We'll start with our left hand. No, don't put your left hand, your right hand, with your thumb on C5, and you'll see we're going to just do these. Yeah, we'll do that whole line. So we'll do 165 through 168 because there's so few notes, and it'll be quite simple. So we have C5 up to D, E flat 5, and then same thing again, C5, D5, E flat 5. So we do that twice. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And that's actually the rhythm of it. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And then you will jump up, you will jump over one string and hit that G5, and then come down to the F5. So here's how it sounds. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And you know what, let's just keep going because we're just in it. So 169 and 170, 171. So 169 and 170 is the same thing. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And then instead of jumping up to the G, we're going to just drop back down to the D. So 169, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. All right? And it, just for good measure, because it's all the same, we're going to go ahead and work through just with the right hand all the way up until 175, because you see 173 and 174, again we have this C, D, E, C, D, E, and then you do jump up to the G. And so, yeah, let's just, yeah, good. Okay, let's just go ahead and do 165 all the way through 175, just with the right hand, so that you can, if you're not seeing it visually, you will hear that once you get one measure, you've got 6 of them. So it's a nice kind of bang for your buck there. So starting at 165, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, and then we'll stop there for a second. Okay, now let's go ahead and put that with the left hand. That's going to be the trickiest part because, again, it's going to sound like and feel like triplets. So you will notice, take a look at where that left hand needs to shift. As usual, it shifts when you have the long note. So we've had where you have faster moving notes rhythmically, and then it kind of ends on a long note, and that ending is when the left hand switches, and it's the same case for here. So in all three, when we have this nice, you're going to be on the C, and then when it rings at a different note, those vary a little bit, you're going to drop down. So I'll do that slowly. Take a look at that sheet music to know exactly when this is, or just wash my hands very carefully. So we're going to start just right on it, 165, again going through to 174, or 175 actually. Okay. That's where we're going to stop, because then it changes a little bit. So I'm going to do that 2 more times so that you can see and hear the rhythms. Again, get that left hand in auto, kind of autopilot, and listen to it. This is definitely a time, if you're struggling with the rhythm, to tap it out. Even if this might be actually a good exercise if you're struggling with it. Do your left hand and just tap out the right hand. So I'll just do that as a full example. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and just tap it out here. This is the right hand rhythm. I'm gonna get a running start with the left hand because it'll help me a little bit. Okay. If that's not helpful for you, then don't do that. But it may be, especially if you're having trouble landing those right hand notes at the right time. I would definitely try something like that, just to help coordinate and get them together, because they kind of they grind against each other in a way that's interesting, but it's difficult. So after that, I'm gonna go ahead and play it again, just for you to hear it and connect the pieces a little bit more. So starting on the bridge, measure 165. All right. So work that a little bit, and then we're going to go ahead and do the rest of the bridge, which is from measure 175 all the way in through 180. So let's take a look at that. We ended on the G. You'll notice that we then go up to an A flat for a second before we come back down to the G. I am on measure 174. So we have G, A flat, G, F, F again, and then we have a kind of staircase down. We have G, F, E flat, and then we ended on E flat. We're going to start on E flat again, E flat, D, C. So that last part in measure 178, the second and third note is what I'm starting on here. G, F, E flat, D, C. So here's how it sounds rhythmically, starting at 174. 1, 2, 1, 2, 2. One, two. One more time. 1, 2. So let's go ahead and put that left hand in. Again, I mean, I'm going quite quickly, so pause, work it, pause, work it, I just don't want to make this excruciatingly long, so I'm just going straight through it, but certainly I don't recommend you doing that. But when you're ready, let's put that left hand in. Again, take a note of where the left hand changes. We have the B flat for 2 measures, and then we have C for just 1 measure before it switches back to B flat for 1 measure, and then finally lands again on the C. So I'll do that a couple times for you. So we have the B flat, again, last time before we put it together. 1, 2. Okay, once you have that, that's the entire bridge. So let's go ahead and play the entire bridge. We have that very repetitive section, and then we have this kind of staircasing down. And after that, we will return to A1, but I don't want to jump too far ahead. So here it is, the full bridge from 165 through 180. Okay, so here it is, the whole bridge we have from 165 to 180. One more time for you. So what I would actually recommend, once you get that done, what I would actually recommend doing, I am not going to do a separate section on this, but what I would do is go ahead and start with the bridge and add on to it the next section, which is A1. So what I mean by this is I would play measures 165 all the way through 199 to 200, slash 200 is what I mean. The reason for that is because you have already learned measures 180 through 200, and so it's kind of nice to go, when you're practicing the bridge, just smooth right into that. So I'm going to do that once, and then I will do everything that we've learned so far up until that point, which is almost the entire song. So again, first I'm just going to do the bridge plus A1, and this is measures 165 through the beginning of 200. Here's A1. Okay. Again, work just that transition between the two. And once you've got that, before moving to the end, again, I put a hard stop here, and I would start from the beginning of the piece and work on melding all these different pieces together. We have A1, A2, bridge, and then A1 again. So that's what I'm going to play now for those of you who are ready to go ahead and move forward. And then we will do the last page, which is just the end of the piece. So from the beginning until 200. Here we go. A2. Bridge. A1. Okay, work that until you're really comfortable, and then come back for the next part. Okay, we're back now for our second to last section, we're going to do the first part of the end. End 1 is what I call it. Like I said at the beginning, the end has this sense almost of like something fading off in the distance. And the reason for that is because you have these sort of snippets of things that we've had before or close to what we've had before. And they get smaller and smaller, both in end 1 and end 2. And so it gets the sense of like someone is walking away or something is fading away, which is where kind of the word memories for memories of home came from. So just so you have a general idea of the movement of this part, we are looking at measures 200 through 216. And I'd actually like to divide that in half because they are essentially the same. There's a tiny bit of accidental improv in this, so I may give you some alternatives as well, but what's written is perfectly fine. But it was a little bit different than what I kind of had in mind, but it worked well, and I like to go with it when things work well, even if it's not as I have planned. So for measure 200, and let's go ahead and, let me see, 200, okay, 200 to 208 is, you could kind of draw a little line there, because that's one section, and then you'll see once we get to it that the second part of 208 until the end of the section in 216 is almost exactly the same. Until the very end, it is exactly the same. And so this is about half as long as it looks in regards to what you need to learn from scratch. So let's go ahead and take a look at the first couple of measures. Let's look at 200 through, well, you know what, let's go ahead and just take that whole section, 200 through 208, because there's very few notes and it'll make more sense to look at it from that way. What you'll notice is that you have a kind of stair step up, what I mean by that is that the note that you kind of end on and the notes in general have an upward movement, kind of like one at a time, like taking one step up as you go one string at a time higher. So it kind of vaguely has that sense to it. So let's take a look. Measure 100, we see G4 and then B flat 4. So just looking at the right hand, this is actually exactly the same as we've had many times over. G4, B flat 4, C. That should sound and feel extremely familiar for you. And so those first two measures are what you're already used to, even with the left hand. Okay. And then we have, yeah, this is a little bit different than I play now. All right, so we'll look at measure 202, and we ended on a C before. We're going to end on a D this time. So that's what I mean by stair stepping it up. So we had, and now we're going to start again on that G4, but instead of going G, B flat, C, we're going to go G, C, D. So you hear that? Okay. If you want, and this is actually how I've ended up playing it most times when I play it now, is again with a G, but instead of returning to the G, I actually play the B flat, so it's, either of those is fine. You can even switch it up, it just kind of depends. But if I accidentally play it that way, that's not on purpose. I will try and keep it as the sheet music has it, but just so you know, it's an alternative. So, well, I won't add in the left hand yet. We have, but there's some rests in there. So let's play that with the left hand, just so I can have the rhythm in there for you. You'll notice that the left hand shifted down when I went to that D. And yeah, okay. I'm realizing the reason that I switched it to the B is because, again, there's a little bit of a conflict with that G4. So I will go ahead and play it on the B flat because I think it works a little bit better. The G works just fine, but it's not allowed to ring as long as I would prefer it to. So I'm talking about the G4 in 202. I'm going to change that to a B flat 4. So here's how that will sound. Again. Okay, that took us to measure 203. Now if we continue going up this staircase, we're looking at measure 204, and we're going to start on a C, then D, then E flat. So if we put all three of these stairs, you could say, together, we have this. So we sort of staircase from C, D to E flat. And then let's go ahead and keep going to the end of this first section. And what I mean by that is, again, that this whole section, end 1, repeats itself. So I'm stopping. I'm going to stop here at the beginning of measure 208. So we've just played C, D, E flat, and then we're going to do, coming down the stairs a little bit, F, E flat, D, and then B flat, C. So I'm going to do 204 through 208 rhythmically a couple times for you, just with the right hand. Again. 1, 2, 2. One more time. 1, 2, 1, 2. Again, we'll take a note of the left hand. We have it on the B flat at first, and we'll see every other measure it changes, so it changes a lot in this section. We have the B flat. I'll illustrate this slowly for you. And then up to C, B flat, C. Let's do that again. Again, we start on B flat, now let's put what we have so far together. It's that staircase up and then coming back down a little bit. So we're going to go 200 to 208. One more time. So again, kind of yield sign here. Get that together and get that, smooth, all those different stairs together in one staircase, as maybe you could say, because you're going to be repeating that again in the second half of this. There's a slight difference at the end, but it's almost identical. So looking at measures 208, again, we see that same thing, G, B flat, C. Again, it'll say G4. Again, I would do B flat so that there's not a conflict on that G4 between the two hands. And then again in measure 212, we have the same C, D, E flat. And the difference comes at the end of measure 213 with 214 and 215. Yeah, this was kind of the improv part. It wasn't quite what I had intended, but it will work just fine. So we've had C, D, E flat, and then again 213 we have E flat, D, C, B flat, C. So here's how this will sound. I'm starting at the end of 212. Again. With the left hand. we are starting on B flat and then switch up to C. Yeah, in measure 213 and hold it there for the rest of the time. Actually, until the rest of the piece. Okay. Let me try that again. Again. And that's the end of this section. So let's put everything together, and then our last part we will have the end of the piece, and then put it all, the whole thing together. So, but for right now, we'll do measure 200 through 216. Once you have that, then come back and we will do the very last part of the piece, finish it up. Okay, we're back for the last part of the piece. We are going to do what I would call just end two. It's kind of, again, as things are trailing off. And this is going to be extremely simple. You will see that the right hand repeats itself, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. So it's very, very straightforward. But let's go ahead and just cover that, and then we'll put the whole piece together. So looking at measure 216 and 217, let's look at just the right hand, and you'll notice it is just what we've been doing before. We have that G4, B flat 4, and C. So all it's doing is repeating itself at different intervals. And so I'm going to just go ahead and actually play this section, because if you can't read sheet music, it's difficult to explain, and so it'd be better just to actually hear it. And I'll have a few notes perhaps as I'm playing it, just so you can notice. What you will notice in short is that the first 3 times this is played, they are farther apart, and then at the end, the last 4 measures, 4.5 measures or so, they're much faster together. So let me illustrate that, and it will make more sense. So I'm going to play 216 until the very end of the piece. Faster. Okay. That last chord, you can play it. I like to play it with 2 with my right hand and 1 with my left, but you could also do it 2 with your left and 1 with your right. But it's a C, G4, and C4. So I'll do that probably 2 more times for you. 1, 2. 1, 2. And yeah, I'd slow down. I haven't written it in here, but I'd slow down at the end, just kind of ease the song to a close, and you'll have learned the whole piece. So let's do that one more time just for good measure. Okay, one other thing that I noticed as I was going through this just now is this is just an option for you. If you look at measures 221 and 222, you will see that the left hand, well, it's the same that we've been playing, but what I actually usually end up doing is leaving off the last 2 notes of the measure, and so that's B flat and D. both times, so that the right hand can have a nice clear entry again. So let me just illustrate what I'm saying. So how it is written is this way. And what I'm suggesting is to leave out the, D, is that right? Yeah, the E flat and the D, like this. So that your left hand, the last note it plays in measures 221 and 222 is the G4, just before the right hand comes in and plays that G4 as well. So that's probably what I would recommend, but it's totally fine for you to do as written in the sheet music. Just it's a tiny bit cleaner that way. So okay, work on that, finish that up, and then let's go ahead and just play through the whole piece. Again, take it as slow or as fast as is actually comfortable for you. One thing I have found, this is just my own experience, but the more comfortable I am with the piece, I tend to play it faster, to such an extent that sometimes it can be faster than it's meant to be. And that's just a result of muscle memory kind of getting ahead of me. And so just make sure you're always listening to what you're playing. It's likely to happen now, but maybe not. Yeah, just make sure you continue to listen to the piece. It will feel faster than it's going to sound, because that left hand is drumming and is moving pretty quick throughout the entire thing, and will get kind of fatigued throughout the end of it, I would probably say. But it's not meant to feel necessarily like a fast piece. It's kind of like a motor running in the background. But the right hand, as you've seen, is pretty calm throughout. There's a lot of times for your hands just to rest if it wants to, your right hand just to rest. So anyways, just keep that in mind as you get more comfortable with it. You don't want to play it so fast that it changes the feel of the piece. So all right, let's go ahead and give it a shot. We'll go all the way through, if I can think it through fast enough, I'll name out the parts that we're traveling through as we go. But of course, there's also the recorded version that I have put up originally, and that's just a nice clean copy of it. You also have it on the music album if that's something that you've purchased. So, okay, so let's go ahead and go through it, and just enjoy this lovely piece, Memories of Home. A2 coming up right here. Repeat it. Bridge. A1. Repeat. Oops. And 2. All right, there we go. Pretty close. I had a little mishap on the end part, but my finger caught a little bit at the very end, but that's okay. All right, let me switch back. Here we go. Okay, switching back so you can see my face a little bit at the end here. Of course, as always, I hope this is helpful for you. I hope that last kind of run through was good for you. Maybe it's good to also see that I don't have to play it absolutely perfectly. That's one thing that maybe would be a good thing to mention as well, is that even on my recorded ones, I have a lot of things that are set up, that are, written out in my mind and play it that way. But there's lots of times where I miss a little bit of a note and end up traveling a little bit differently on the lyre than I anticipated. And so that's something that when I play just in general, almost, I don't know if I'd say always, but it very often happens. And so I think that's where becoming familiar with the lyre and very comfortable with it is really helpful, and helps to allow, even when you're playing a particular song, to be very playful, because you can add little things here and there. I often do that when I'm just playing on my own or for others. Or if you miss a little bit of a note, or you come up one string too high or one string too low, you can use that. You can integrate that in. And so when I found that out, when one of my favorite piano players mentioned that sort of offhandedly in a book, I thought that was very helpful for me. I didn't have to get every note exactly right for it to be a beautiful piece. And actually, he played his pieces a little bit differently every time, he said. So just know that. Certainly there are things that are going to be the same. The parts that are repeated because I play them consistently every time, but there's other little parts, like the end sometimes is a little bit different, or my transitions between different parts are sometimes slightly different. So just be flexible with that and play with that. I would use that to your advantage, rather than seeing that maybe as a low point or as a mistake. Just integrate that in. Most times people don't even notice. You're the only one who usually notices that. So anyways, just a little bit of a note there. Again, if you found this helpful, it's awesome for you to put that in the comments for me. It's really nice to know, or let me know in whatever way, email or something like that. If you have any suggestions or something that would be really helpful for you if you use these videos and you would really like for me to do something differently, either that's integrate something that's not integrated here, or go at a different pace or something like that, feel free to voice that to me. I'm happy to integrate that. I'm just doing what I think is most helpful and most efficient in regards to video length on some of these. So anyways, best of luck. I hope it's a joyful and very fun activity, even though it requires us to work and to grow and things like that. I hope it's still filled with joy and wonder for you. And again, let me know if you have any questions or comments by way of email or comment below. All right, thank you so much. God bless you. May the peace of Christ be with you, and thanks again.